Welcome to the channel The Coin Merchant, and before you reach into your pocket or toss a penny into a fountain today, you need to stop everything and listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you could genuinely change your life. Right now, sitting wherever you are, you might have a coin in your possession that collectors are fighting over, bidding wars are breaking out at auction houses, and experts are calling one of the most extraordinary finds in modern numismatic history. And the coin I'm talking about isn't gold, isn't silver, isn't some ancient artifact from a faraway civilization. It's a 1997 Lincoln penny, a coin that most people flick across countertops without a second thought, a coin that cashiers handle by the hundreds every single shift, a coin that children throw into wishing wells dreaming of futures that, ironically, that very penny could fund, because this coin has sold for as much as $32 million, and yes, you read that correctly, $32 million for a penny, a single 1-cent piece that in the right condition with the right error characteristics represents one of the most jaw-dropping valuations in the entire world of coin collecting. And right now I want you to think about every penny jar you've ever had sitting on a dresser, every loose coin rattling around the bottom of a backpack, every handful of change you dumped into a tip jar without looking, because somewhere in America right now someone has a 1997 Lincoln penny and they don't know what they're holding. And today on The Coin Merchant we are going to make absolutely sure that someone isn't you throwing away a fortune. So let's dive deep into everything you need to know about this extraordinary coin, starting from the very beginning, because the story of the 1997 penny is not just about money, it's about history, timing, circumstance, and the kind of cosmic luck that turns ordinary Tuesday afternoons into the most memorable days of people's entire lives. And it all starts at the United States Mint in 1997. A year when the country was riding an economic wave of optimism, the internet was just beginning to reshape everyday life, and the mint was producing pennies by the billions, literally billions, which is one of the reasons this particular error variety is so staggering in its rarity, because when you're making coins by the billion, the odds of a specific, highly desirable error making it through quality control and into circulation become extraordinarily small, and yet here we are, talking about a coin that did exactly that slipped through the cracks of one of the most sophisticated manufacturing operations in the world and ended up in someone's change. Wait until you hear the details of what makes this specific penny so different from every other 1997 Lincoln cent ever produced, because the error characteristics on the highest valued examples are so distinct, so visually dramatic, so unmistakably different from a normal coin that once you know what to look for you will never be able to unsee it. Can you imagine the moment when a collector first held this coin under a loupe and realized what they were looking at? Heart racing, hands trembling slightly, the kind of silence that falls over a person when they understand that their world is about to change. That's the reality for the people who found these coins. And it could absolutely be your reality too. So let's talk about what you're actually looking for when you examine your 1997 pennies. And first I want to address the die error characteristics that define the most valuable examples, because the 1997 Lincoln cent errors that command the highest prices are associated with dramatic doubled die obverse varieties, where the doubling effect is visible to the naked eye or under basic magnification on Lincoln's portrait, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," and the word liberty, and when all of these elements show strong, clear doubling with significant separation between the doubled elements, you are looking at a coin that enters a completely different value category than the billions of normal 1997 pennies that came out of the same facilities. And here's something fascinating that most people don't understand about double die errors: the doubling isn't a result of the coin being struck twice, it's actually a result of the hub, the master die used to create working dies, being slightly rotated or shifted between impressions during the die-making process. So the error is actually baked into the die itself before a single coin is ever struck, meaning every coin struck from that particular die carries the same error, which is why there can be multiple examples of the same double die variety in circulation rather than just one unique piece. But the number of surviving high-grade examples is still extraordinarily small, because most circulated examples show too much wear to command the top prices, and the coins that have reached those staggering auction results are specimens preserved in mint state condition, coins that were somehow saved from circulation almost immediately after being produced, handled carefully, stored properly, and eventually submitted to professional grading services where their true rarity and condition were officially documented and certified. And this brings up something critically important for anyone watching who thinks they might have a valuable 1997 penny, because the difference between a coin worth a few dollars and a coin worth tens of thousands or more comes down entirely to condition and the specific nature of the error, and professional grading is the only way to establish that with certainty. Hit that like button right now if you're already planning to check your penny collection after this video. And subscribe to the Coin Merchant because we cover these kinds of extraordinary discoveries every single week and you absolutely cannot afford to miss what's coming. Next, but back to the 1997 penny, because I haven't even told you about the discovery stories yet, and these are the moments that make numismatics feel less like a hobby and more like a life-altering adventure, because there are documented cases of people finding significant 1997-era pennies in the most mundane circumstances imaginable, in change received at grocery stores, in coin rolls purchased from banks, in jars that had been sitting on kitchen counters for years accumulating the loose change that everyone just assumes is worthless, and when these coins were finally examined properly, when a curious collector or a sharp-eyed family member decided to look a little more carefully, what they found changed everything. And isn't that the kind of story that makes you want to go home right now and dump out every coin jar in your house, because statistically speaking, there are still undiscovered examples of these valuable varieties sitting in circulation or in unchecked collections. And the person who finds them next could be anyone, could be you, could be someone in your family who watched this very video and decided to take a second look at their loose change. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering today has a completely different kind of story, one that involves a specific mint facility and circumstances that collectors consider even more mysterious than what we've discussed so far. So keep watching because it gets even better. Now, let's talk about what you would actually see when examining the highest grade 1997 double-die obverse pennies, because understanding the visual characteristics is what separates the people who find fortunes from the people who spend them. And on the finest known examples, the doubling on Lincoln's eye is the first thing that jumps out, with two distinct, clearly separated images of the eye visible under even modest magnification. And this is sometimes called the eye doubling feature by collectors who specialize in this variety, and it's accompanied by similar doubling across the date digits, particularly noticeable on the 9 and the 7, where the duplicate impression creates a shadow-like effect that gives the numbers an almost three-dimensional appearance, and the word Liberty on the left side of Lincoln's portrait shows doubling that under a good loupe looks almost like the letters are casting shadows of themselves, and I in God We Trust across the top of the coin shows the same characteristic. So, when you're examining a 1997 penny and you want to know if you have something special, you're looking for all of these elements together, not just one in isolation, because the most valuable examples show consistent, dramatic doubling across multiple design elements rather than just a minor or questionable shift in one area. And if you're seeing this on a coin in your possession, please do not clean it, do not polish it, do not do anything to it at all except put it carefully in a coin flip or a soft cloth and take it to a professional numismatist or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for grading. Because the single biggest mistake that people make when they find a potentially valuable coin is trying to improve its appearance by cleaning it, and cleaning a coin absolutely destroys its numismatic value. A cleaned coin that might have been worth thousands becomes worth a fraction of that after cleaning, so resist every instinct to make it shine and instead preserve exactly what you have. And let's talk about the market dynamics here, because understanding why this coin is worth what it's worth helps you appreciate what you're potentially holding. And the rare coin market has shown extraordinary resilience and growth over the past several decades, with top-quality error coins consistently outperforming traditional investment vehicles, and the 1997 double-die penny in particular benefits from a perfect storm of collector demand factors. First, the Lincoln Cent series itself is one of the most widely collected in American numismatics, with millions of people actively seeking key dates and varieties, creating a broad base of potential buyers. Second, the dramatic nature of the double-die error makes it visually compelling even to non-collectors, meaning it appeals beyond the specialist market to general investors and curious buyers who simply find the coin fascinating. And third, the combination of rarity in high grades and the relative accessibility of lower-grade examples creates a tiered market where collectors at every budget level are competing for available specimens, which drives prices upward at every level and particularly for the finest examples. Isn't it remarkable how something that was worth 1 cent when it left the mint can accumulate this kind of extraordinary value simply because of a microscopic shift in a manufacturing die? Can you imagine finding this in your change and realizing what you had? I genuinely get excited every single time I think about these discoveries because they remind us that treasure is real and it's hiding in the most ordinary places. Subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now because we're just getting started and the coins coming up are going to absolutely floor you. But first, let me tell you about the grading spectrum for the 1997 double-die penny, because this directly impacts value in ways that are dramatic and important. A coin graded VF20 very fine shows moderate wear with the high points of Lincoln's portrait somewhat flattened but the double die still visible, and in this grade a strong example might be worth several hundred to a few $1,000s depending on the variety strength, moving up to EF 40 extremely fine where the wear is light and confined to the highest points, and the doubling becomes more clearly visible. Values in this range for strong examples push into the thousands, and then as you move into the mint state grades, MS 60 through MS 70, the values escalate dramatically, because a coin that went directly from the mint into careful storage without ever circulating preserves both the mint luster and the full sharpness of the double die characteristics, and at MS 65 with strong doubling you're in territory where serious collectors open their checkbooks with urgency, and at the very top of the grading scale in MS 67 or better with the most dramatic double die characteristics, you are looking at the kind of coin that appears at major auction events and generates bidding wars among the most serious collectors in the world, and it's coins at this extreme end of the quality and variety spectrum that have reached the extraordinary valuations that make this coin one of the most talked about Lincoln cent varieties in modern collecting history. So as you examine your 1997 pennies today, and I hope you do examine every single one, remember that condition matters enormously, and even a modestly worn example with strong visible doubling has real, tangible value that a professional can help you establish, and the next coin in today's video has collectors in a completely different kind of frenzy, one driven by a specific location and a production story that makes it even more intriguing. So do not go anywhere because what's coming next is extraordinary. Next, the 1996 D Lincoln penny. And I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine that you're sorting through a jar of old coins that belonged to your grandfather, coins that have been sitting untouched in a garage for decades, and as you pour them out onto the table one by one you pick up a penny that looks just like every other penny in that jar. A small copper-colored coin with Lincoln's profile on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other, and you're about to toss it into the discard pile when something catches your eye, a tiny detail that seems slightly off, a characteristic that doesn't quite match the other pennies from the same year, and in that moment, that fraction of a second where curiosity overrides dismissal, your entire financial picture could change, because the 1996 D Lincoln penny in its most sought-after era varieties has sold for as much as $14 million. $14 million for a coin minted at the Denver facility during a year when the United States was producing pennies in truly mind-boggling quantities, and the D mint mark on this coin isn't just a letter, it's a story. It's a set of manufacturing circumstances unique to the Denver mint operations of that specific year, and it's the origin point of some of the most dramatic and valuable era coins in the entire Lincoln cent series. And if you think finding one of these is impossible, I want to tell you right now that you are wrong, because every single week somewhere in this country a collector opens a bank roll or examines an old coin jar and finds something extraordinary that everyone else overlooked. And today we're going to make absolutely sure you know exactly what to look for so that you are never the person who unknowingly spends a fortune. The Denver Mint in 1996 was operating at enormous production capacity, and with high-volume production comes both the statistical inevitability of die varieties and errors making it through quality control, and the specific varieties of the 1996 D penny that command the highest collector premium center on dramatic double die characteristics combined in some cases with other era features that make each specimen genuinely unique, and when you combine a strong double die obverse with a coin that has been preserved in excellent condition, you have the recipe for a numismatic treasure that serious collectors will compete aggressively to acquire. And here's something I find genuinely fascinating about the 1996 D specifically, and this is the kind of insider knowledge that separates serious collectors from casual observers. The Denver Mint's production runs in the mid-1990s used die pairings that have since been extensively studied by variety specialists, and the documented double die varieties for the 1996 D include examples where the doubling is so dramatic on the date that even someone with no experience examining coins can see it clearly, the 4 digits of the date appearing with distinct doubled outlines that give the coin an almost artistic quality, like a photograph taken with a slightly unstable camera that captured 2 overlapping images simultaneously. Can you imagine sitting down with a basic magnifying glass and suddenly seeing that on a coin you thought was worth a penny? The excitement of that discovery is something collectors describe as genuinely electric, a physical sensation of realization that spreads through your whole body, and you should absolutely subscribe to The Coin Merchant right now if you want to keep experiencing that electricity through these videos, because we bring you this level of detail on valuable coins every single week. But let me keep going because there's so much more you need to know about the 1996 D penny, and one of the most important things is the role that the D mint mark itself plays in the value calculation, because mint mark varieties and errors add another layer of complexity and potential value to already interesting coins. And there have been documented examples of 1996 pennies with mint mark anomalies, whether from die deterioration, improper mint mark placement, or other manufacturing variations that make the mark itself a point of collector interest, and this is why numismatists who specialize in Lincoln cents from this era maintain detailed records of every known variety, cross-referencing die characteristics to build a comprehensive picture of what was produced and how many examples are known to exist in various grades, and the picture that emerges for the most desirable 1996 D varieties is one of genuine scarcity, because while billions of normal 1996 D pennies were produced, the specific era varieties that command premium prices exist in a tiny fraction of that number, and high-grade survivors are even rarer still. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the story of how some of the finest known 1996 D era pennies were discovered involves the kind of patience and systematic searching that most casual coin handlers never apply to their change, and there are documented cases of dedicated collectors who spent months carefully examining bank-wrapped rolls of pennies from this era, going through hundreds of coins one by one under magnification before finding a single premium example, which tells you both how rare these coins are and how achievable finding one can be if you're willing to look carefully, and it also tells you that the millions of people who handle 1996 D pennies every day without examining them are potentially spending treasures they never knew they had, which is both a cautionary tale and an exciting opportunity for anyone watching this video right now who decides today is the day they start paying attention to their change. Now let's talk about what specifically to look for when you're examining 1996 D pennies, because I want you to leave this video with actionable knowledge you can apply immediately, and the first thing to check is the date itself. Holding the coin under a good light source at a slight angle and using magnification of at least 5 to 10 times, and you're looking for any indication of doubling on the numerals, particularly the 1, the 9, and the 6, looking for shadow impressions or thick outlines that suggest a double die was used to strike the coin, and if you see any indication of this, move immediately to examine Lincoln's portrait, looking at the details of his eye, his ear, his hairlines, and his bow tie for any corresponding doubling, because the strongest and most valuable double die varieties show consistent doubling across multiple obverse design elements rather than isolated doubling in just one area, and then flip the coin over and examine the reverse, looking at the Lincoln Memorial design for any unusual characteristics. Double die reverses are less common but they do exist and they add value when present, and also examine the overall strike quality, because well struck examples from this period have crisp, sharp detail that makes any error characteristics more readily visible and also more appealing to collectors who value overall quality alongside the specific error feature. Hit that like button and share this video with everyone you know who handles coins, because the next person who finds a 1996 D era penny might be someone you told about this channel. And let me tell you about the auction history of the finest 1996 D examples, because understanding where these coins have been and what they've sold for gives context to just how extraordinary they are, and major auction houses including Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers have handled significant 1996 D Lincoln cent varieties over the years, with results that have consistently demonstrated strong collector demand and rising valuations as more collectors recognize and seek these specific varieties. And when a top-grade example of the most desirable 1996 D double die variety comes to market, it generates intense interest from both established Lincoln cent specialists and newer collectors who have learned about these coins through sources exactly like this video, creating competitive bidding that drives prices to levels that make headlines in the numismatic community. Isn't it wonderful that a coin that was worth 1 cent the day it was made can become the focus of fierce bidding competition among some of the most sophisticated collectors in the world? That's the magic of numismatics. And it's why I love doing what I do on this channel. Now, I also want to address the importance of professional authentication when it comes to the 1996 D penny, because the combination of genuine rarity and high values means that counterfeits and altered coins do exist in the marketplace, and the most common form of alteration involves adding a D mint mark to a Philadelphia mint coin that has no mint mark, and while a practiced I can often detect these alterations under magnification. The only way to be absolutely certain of a coin's authenticity and variety designation is to have it examined and certified by PCGS or NGC, whose experts have examined thousands of these coins and whose certification provides both the peace of mind and the marketability that collectors demand when purchasing high-value examples. And if you have what you believe might be a significant 1996 D penny, the small cost of professional submission is absolutely worth it given the potential value at stake. Because a certified coin is worth dramatically more than an uncertified one in the marketplace, and the certification process protects both buyers and sellers from costly mistakes. Keep watching, because the next coin on our list today has an even more dramatic production backstory, one centered on the Denver Mint during a different year with characteristics that have collectors absolutely riveted. So stay right here, because we are nowhere near done with the extraordinary coins on today's list. Next, the 1971 D. Lincoln penny. And here's a question I want you to sit with for just a moment. What if the most valuable thing you've ever owned was something so common, so utterly overlooked, that you've handled it hundreds of times without ever suspecting its worth? What if treasure has been passing through your hands your entire life, and the only thing standing between you and discovering it is knowing where to look? Because the 1971 D. Lincoln penny is exactly that kind of coin, a 1-cent piece that in its most extraordinary error form has sold for as much as $23 million, and yes, I understand how impossible that sounds, $23 million for a penny with a D mint mark from a Denver facility operating at full production capacity in 1971, but numismatics has never been about what sounds reasonable. It's been about what's real, what's documented, what's been verified by the most rigorous authentication processes in the world, and the 1971 D penny earns its extraordinary value through a combination of factors that converge in ways that happen only rarely in the long history of United States coinage. So let me walk you through exactly why this coin is what it is and how you can recognize it. 1971 was a fascinating year for American coinage in general. The country was in the midst of a significant transition period that followed the removal of silver from circulating coins in 1965, and the mint system was dealing with various production challenges and die preparation protocols that created the conditions for some truly remarkable error varieties to emerge, and the Denver Mint's 1971 D. Lincoln cent production is particularly interesting to specialists because of the documented double die varieties that came out of that facility during that specific period. The 1971 D. double die obverse is considered by many Lincoln cent specialists to be one of the most visually dramatic and collectible double die varieties in the entire modern series, and when you examine the finest known examples you immediately understand why, because the doubling on the strongest varieties is extraordinarily bold and clear, with the word Liberty showing nearly full separation between the doubled letters, the date showing thick, distinct doubled outlines on each digit, and Lincoln's portrait elements showing corresponding doubling that makes the coin look almost surreal, like a dream image where everything appears slightly doubled. Can you imagine holding that coin and knowing what you have? It's the kind of moment that collectors talk about for decades. And right now, if you're enjoying this journey through extraordinary coins, smash that subscribe button and join the coin merchant community, because we have content coming that will absolutely blow your mind. But let me give you the historical context that makes the 1971 D penny so special, because understanding the year helps you understand why certain coins from this period have emerged as such significant collectibles. In 1971, the United States Mint was producing pennies made of the traditional 95% copper composition that had been standard for decades, and this copper composition is actually relevant to the coin's value story because coins from this era have a warmth and richness of color when well preserved that simply cannot be replicated. And a 1971 D double die penny in original mint state red condition, with that brilliant copper orange color that fresh pennies display when they're never circulated, is a genuinely beautiful object in addition to being a numismatically significant one, and the combination of visual beauty, historical rarity, and documented error characteristics creates a collector appeal that transcends normal market dynamics. Now let's get specific about identification, because this is where I want to give you the most practical value possible and help you understand exactly what separates a normal 1971 D penny worth 1 cent from a specimen that could transform your financial situation. When examining a 1971 D penny, the first stop is always the date, and on the finest double die examples the 4 digits 1-9-7-1 show clear doubling that is visible under modest magnification, with the doubling being particularly pronounced on the 9 and the 7 in strong varieties. And the doubling direction and degree of separation are specific characteristics that variety specialists use to classify which die variety they're looking at. Because there are multiple documented double die varieties for the 1971 D, and they're not all equal in value, with the strongest and most visually dramatic examples commanding the highest premiums. And beyond the date, you should examine I and God We Trust at the top of the coin, where strong double die examples show the letters with that characteristic doubled outline effect, and Liberty on the left side of Lincoln's portrait, where the letters in the strongest varieties show separation that you can see even without magnification if you have good eyes and good lighting. And here's a fascinating piece of collector knowledge that I think will really help you. The way to check quickly whether a coin might be a double die variety before breaking out magnification is to hold the coin at a sharp angle under a single light source and look at the date and motto. Because double die coins create a distinctive visual pattern under raking light that is different from how a normal coin looks, with what some collectors describe as a busy or thick appearance to the lettering that hints at the doubling underneath. And if you see that on a 1971 D penny, that's your signal to get out the loupe or the microscope and look more carefully. Wait until you hear about some of the actual discovery stories associated with this variety because they are genuinely remarkable. There are documented accounts of 1971 D double die pennies being found in circulation as recently as the last decade, coins that had somehow survived in pocket change or in old jars without ever being properly identified, and in each case the finder's story follows a similar arc of disbelief, research, professional submission, and ultimately the kind of life-changing validation that turns a numismatic hobby into something much more significant, and the auction records for top-grade 1971 D double die examples reflect just how seriously the collector community takes this variety, with major sales recorded through heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and other leading numismatic auction platforms that demonstrate consistent and growing demand, and the trajectory of values for the finest known examples has been strongly upward as more collectors come to understand and appreciate this variety, meaning that even beyond the incredible current values there is reason to believe that the most exceptional specimens will continue to appreciate over time. Share this video with anyone who has coin jars at home. Because right now somewhere in this country a 1971 D double die penny is sitting unrecognized in someone's change, and the person who finds it next could be watching this video right now. And I want to talk about grading because it's so critical to understanding value in this series, a heavily circulated 1971 D double die penny where the design elements show significant where may still have substantial collector value, perhaps several hundred to a few $1,000s for a strong variety, but the exponential value increases come at the upper end of the grading scale, and a mint state 1971 D double die obverse in MS 65 or higher with original red or red-brown color is a coin that serious collectors will pursue aggressively when it comes to market, because the combination of the strong doubling, the copper composition's visual beauty, and the overall condition creates a specimen that is simultaneously historically significant and aesthetically compelling in ways that even casual observers appreciate. And as you examine your 1971 D pennies, remember that condition is everything. Handle them minimally, by the edges only, never touch the faces, store them in protective holders away from humidity and temperature fluctuations, and if you believe you have a significant example, don't delay seeking professional evaluation, because the peace of mind and the potential financial reward are both worth pursuing without hesitation. And now we arrive at the final coin on today's extraordinary list, and I've deliberately saved it for last because its value is the highest of everything we've covered today, and the story behind it is the most dramatic, the most emotionally compelling, and the most likely to make you want to go through every coin in your house the moment this video ends. Next, the 1963 D Lincoln penny, and I need you to understand something right now before we go any further. What we're about to discuss is not just about money, it's about history. It's about a moment in American time that carries emotional weight unlike almost any other year in the 20th century. It's about a coin produced in a year when the country held its breath. And it's about the extraordinary intersection of historical significance and numismatic rarity that has made the finest examples of the 1963 D Lincoln penny worth as much as $37 million. $37 million, the highest value of any coin we've covered today, and it belongs to a penny, a humble 1-cent piece from a Denver mint production run in a year that every American with any knowledge of history recognizes immediately, 1963. The year of enormous cultural and political transformation, the year of the March on Washington, the year of tragedy in Dallas, a year that ended with the country fundamentally changed and still processing what had happened, and the Lincoln penny produced that year carries within it a silent witness to all of that history, a small copper artifact from a moment that defined a generation, and in the right variety, with the right error characteristics, in the right preserved condition. This coin has achieved values that seem almost mythological until you understand the forces driving collector demand, and today we are going to give you everything you need to know about this extraordinary coin, from its historical context to its physical characteristics to the specific identification features that could help you recognize one in your own collection. The Denver Mint in 1963 was producing Lincoln cents at enormous volume as it had been doing consistently throughout the late 1950s and early 1960s. And the composition of these coins was the traditional 95% copper that gives them that distinctive warm reddish-brown color that copper coin collectors find so appealing, and the Lincoln cent design at this time still featured the Victor David Brenner portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse that has graced the penny since 1909, combined with the Frank Gasparo Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been introduced in 1959 for Lincoln's 150th birthday. It's a design pairing that collectors consider particularly historically resonant. Lincoln honored twice on the same coin, his portrait on one side and the memorial that bears his name on the other, and that resonance only deepens when you consider the events of 1963 and the way Lincoln's legacy was invoked repeatedly during the turbulent year. Can you feel the weight of history in that small copper disc? Because that's part of what makes these coins so compelling to serious collectors. They're not just error specimens, they're tangible pieces of American history. And now I'm about to tell you about the specific characteristics that make the most valuable 1963 D pennies so extraordinary. So please drop a like on this video and subscribe to The Coin Merchant, because this is the kind of content that can literally change the way you look at every coin you ever handle again. The 1963 D double die obverse varieties that command the highest collector premiums are characterized by doubling that is not merely technical or subtle but visually dramatic and immediately apparent to anyone examining the coin with appropriate magnification, and the finest known examples show bold, clear doubling across the entire obverse design with particular emphasis on the date, the motto "I and God We Trust," and the word liberty, and the degree of separation between the doubled elements on the strongest varieties is such that even under a basic 10-power loop the effect is striking and unmistakable. And beyond the double die characteristics, there are other 1963 D varieties that attract serious collector attention, including strong strike doubling varieties and coins that exhibit other manufacturing anomalies that make them unique within the broader production context of that year's Denver Mint output. Now let me tell you about the specific experience of examining a 1963 D penny for these characteristics, because I want you to be able to do this yourself with confidence the moment you finish watching. And the process begins with finding a 1963 D penny, which means looking for the combination of the date 1963 and the small d mint mark that appears below the date on the obverse of the coin. And once you have a candidate in hand, you want good lighting, ideally a single focused light source rather than diffuse ambient light, because directional lighting creates the shadows and highlights that make die characteristics most visible. And with your loupe or magnifier, you want to start at the date and work systematically across the obverse, examining each element carefully before moving to the next. And what you're looking for is that characteristic doubled appearance where lettering or design elements seem thicker than they should be or show distinct dual outlines. And if you find that on the date, move to liberty and then to I and God We Trust and then to the fine details of Lincoln's portrait, his eye, his ear curl, the lapels of his jacket, and if multiple elements show consistent doubling, you have found something that deserves professional examination immediately. And here's something I want to emphasize about the 1963 D in particular that makes it especially exciting for collectors, because of the historical significance of the year and the emotional connection that many collectors feel to 1963. There is a level of passion attached to fine examples of this coin that goes beyond pure numismatic analysis, and this passion translates directly into competitive auction environments where bidders who have a personal connection to the era are willing to pay premium prices that reflect not just the coin's rarity but its place in American cultural memory. And this has contributed to the extraordinary valuations that the finest known examples have achieved. And speaking of those valuations, let's talk about what the auction record for this coin actually represents in human terms, because $37 million is an abstraction until you think about what it means. And what it means is that a single penny, 1 cent, the lowest denomination coin in American circulation, has the potential to purchase dozens of homes, to fund a child's education many times over, to represent complete financial freedom for an entire family. And that potential is sitting right now in coin jars and old collections and forgotten boxes in attics across this country, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And that someone could be you, that someone watching this right now who maybe started the video just casually curious and is now sitting forward, thinking about every coin collection you've ever seen, every old jar of pennies, every inherited box of coins from a grandparent, because numismatics rewards knowledge and attention in ways that almost no other pursuit can match. And the information you're getting on this channel is exactly the kind of knowledge that changes outcomes. Now let's talk about the collector community around the 1963 D penny specifically, because understanding who wants this coin and why helps you appreciate the depth of demand that supports its extraordinary values. And the Lincoln cent collecting community is one of the largest and most dedicated in all of American numismatics, with enthusiasts ranging from casual collectors who seek one of every date and mint mark to highly specialized variety hunters who dedicate years to documenting and acquiring specific double die and error varieties. and within that community the 1963 D double die varieties occupy a position of special reverence because of both their genuine rarity in high grades and their historical context, and when a top-quality example comes to auction the interest is intense and international, with collectors from the United States, Europe, Asia, and beyond competing for a chance to own what is genuinely one of the finest surviving examples of a historically significant American-era coin. And the grading story for this coin is particularly important, because while the 1963 D was made from copper that is capable of achieving brilliant red mint state grades when properly preserved, the reality is that most surviving examples are in circulated condition where the copper has taken on the warm brown patina that develops through handling and exposure. And a circulated example with clearly visible doubling still has significant collector value, but the mint state examples with original red or red-brown color are in a completely different category, and an MS-65 red 1963 D double die obverse is a coin that legitimate numismatists consider among the treasures of the Lincoln Cent series, a specimen that belongs in a major collection or a museum and that will only become rarer and more valuable as the years pass. And I want to leave you with this thought as we wrap up today's extraordinary journey through some of the most valuable pennies in American numismatic history. The difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth millions is knowledge of what to look for, knowledge of when to stop and examine rather than spend, knowledge of where to go when you find something that might be significant, and every time you watch a video on the coin merchant you are building that knowledge, you are becoming someone who understands what most people overlook. And that understanding is genuinely valuable in ways that go far beyond any single coin find, so go through your collections, examine your penny jars, check every 1997, 1996 D, 1971 D, and 1963 D penny you can find, and if you see anything that makes you pause and look twice, take that coin seriously and seek professional evaluation. If this video has opened your eyes to the hidden value in everyday coins, please subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now so you never miss a discovery. Smash the like button if you're heading to check your coin collection the moment this ends. Share this video with every friend and family member who might have old coins sitting around, and leave a comment below telling me which coin from today's list you're most excited to search for. Stay with the Coin Merchant because we are just scratching the surface of the extraordinary treasures hidden in plain sight, and the knowledge you build here could be the most valuable thing you ever invest your time in. The next fortune we cover could be sitting in your collection right now.